Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour on this fine October 2nd, 2020. I'm your host, Andrew Barnes, joined with an awesome crew of folks today, and we'll jump right into the intros with Brad.
Hey everybody, Brad Tilton. I'm a developer advocate with a developer program here at ServiceNow. I've been developing on the platform for about 12 years as a customer, partner, trainer, and employee for the last 4, and I am really excited to be here with our crew today.
And Chris?
Yeah, nice to meet everybody. I'm Chris. I actually just hit my 9th birthday here at ServiceNow, so I've been here 9 years. And I am a manager of product management. So hoping to have some fun.
Of what product, Chris?
Oh, yeah. So I didn't want to steal Josh's thunder, but we're both on the Integration Hub product. I focus mainly on inbound and spokes.
Awesome. And Josh Nereus, no stranger to the show.
Yeah, I'm Josh. It's been a while. I'm really excited to be back. I'm a product manager, as Chris stole my thunder. Thanks, Chris. On the Integration Hub team, mostly focused on outbound. So this is really the core components. Chris makes the spokes happen. I make the tools happen that make the spokes happen. So we work very closely with each other. And yeah, I'm excited to be on this crew today.
All right. And another former dev advocate from this team, no stranger at all to the show. It's the former duo there with Josh and Dave Slusher.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dave Slusher. I am a software engineer on the Integration Hub team, which sounds like I develop software, but I do almost exactly the same thing I did when I was in the dev program. I just do it specifically for Integration Hub now. And Josh was too modest to call it out, but Josh and I were the founders of this program that we pulled out of our ass like 4 years ago on a Thursday. And we said, let's do this tomorrow. And then history was made.
All right. Thanks, Dave. And I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate here at ServiceNow. I've been developing on the platform for a little over 6 years. I've been at ServiceNow for 2 years. Definitely not anywhere near the 9 years anniversary and 6 and 12 years on the platform Brad's got, but I have fun on it. So let's quickly introduce our drinks of choice today. Brad, what do you got?
All right, I'm really excited about today. I found this Dragon's Milk White. So I love the normal Dragon's Milk. I have not tried this yet, but it's a barrel-aged white stout. So hopefully it's good.
I'm making a trip to Brad's. I need some of that. What do you have, Chris?
So I'm going to go a little off script here, guys. I'm a home brewer, so normally it's beer is my drink of choice. But today I'm going with just some, Costco version of red wine. I know you can't see it very well, but it's I can't even say it. It's a Chianti, some Italian name, but red wine for me.
And what'd you bring to the table, Josh?
So I have a Beguile flannel pajamas oatmeal stout. Beguile is a brewery here in Chicago. It's just like a mile from me, and it's been in my fridge since last winter. So we're gonna see how this goes.
It's can aged.
Yeah.
What did you bring, Dave?
I think I'm going to have this Breckenbach, which I've never heard of. I picked up just because I'd never seen it at Aldi's yesterday. which is where practically every beer I've drank on this show for about 2 years comes from Aldi's because I don't get to a fancy beer store. In solidarity with Chris, I was considering the Kirkland brand Session IPA, but I'm going to go with the Breckenbach. Just so that he's not the only one drinking Kirkland brand. It was certainly on the table, man.
And so I'm fully out of beers. This is the last beer in the house. Yingling. It's traditional lager, which is a tasty beer. I almost went off brand and grabbed a whiskey, but the vote from the crew said drink the beer, so I'm drinking the beer. So
there's a case to be made. Why not both?
I mean, I'm not driving on the show today, so that very well may happen. So before we jump into it, to let you know, it's October, and that means Hacktoberfest. So those two fine gentlemen, Josh and Dave, previously started our engagement with working with Hacktoberfest, which is a open source encouragement event hosted by DigitalOcean. And the way it works is you go to GitHub, any of the public repositories there. If you submit 4 pull requests that don't get marked as spam, that's a very key point. Don't go just adding some comments to a thing and calling it a pull request, because that's spam. You get some swag from DigitalOcean. There's also some virtual events hosted on the hacktoberfest.com site. So you go there, register, find some events, do some queries on GitHub for an open source project that you're willing to contribute to. And here at ServiceNow on the developer site, developer.servicenow.com, in our blog, you'll find we have 2 focuses for this year. Last year was Spoketoberfest, and it was all about spokes. This year, we're doing half spokes and half now experience. So if you want to add to the area of Josh, Dave, and Chris, an integration hub spokes, you can go and contribute to some existing spokes and enhance them or build your own. Then in the now experience land, we're also building components and collaborating on those. So you'll find 2 different GitHub orgs that will have repos that you can contribute to or create new repos in and collect contributions from others as well as yourself there. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dave, who will walk us through what we're going to do today.
So how about this? Even before we do that, let's tell quickly the story of how Hacktoberfest was. Or
Absolutely.
Hacktoberfest. Was it 2017, Josh? Seems like it would have either.
Seems like 17.
It had to have been 17.
Sounds about right.
We were in GitHub Universe. We both went to GitHub Universe in Dogpatch in San Francisco. It was like October 11th and 12th or something. It was well into the month. And the second day, between the first and the second day, we were walking from our Airbnb to the event space. And Josh said, I think I figured out a way that we could merge update sets from GitHub. That we could do some magic to make that a GitHub pull request actually kind of acceptable and like vetoable and like do all the sorts of things that are very difficult. Since ServiceNow update sets are like versioned checksummed XML, you can't just do your standard GitHub textual merge like you would with Java code or any other code really. And so the second day, we really didn't get that much out of GitHub Universe because we're both coding frantically on our like every session we went to, we had our laptops and we're like trying to build this thing because we said if we run into any technical problems, we have GitHub engineers right there that we can talk to. And in fact, we talked to them about the GraphQL, something that wasn't working, and they talked us through it. And so we kind of validated that. So we didn't really get much from the sessions, but we built the mechanism that allows Hacktoberfest to work for ServiceNow that second day at GitHub Universe. That's how it happened.
And I'm pretty sure we talked to some of the DigitalOcean people there too, if I remember correctly. So it was this combination of how are we here doing this thing, and all the people that are related to the thing we're doing are also here too. So that was pretty cool.
All right. So
hey Dave, can you check your microphone? You seem a little low.
Okay.
Are you in the right mic?
Maybe not. So actually, Andrew, while I check this, why don't you
He says, "Why don't I do something?" All right, I'll
wait,
do
why
something.
don't you tell us about how Spoketoberfest specifically was?
Absolutely. So Spoketoberfest came into fruition because Dave and I were in India visiting with our great developers there, and we were giving some workshops for customers and partners there. And we ran into one of Chris and Josh's peers in the engineering org. And over some drinks, we were talking about the plan to get a bunch of spokes for 2020. And his group, his group was the engineering group in charge of that. And we said, well, October's coming up. We haven't picked a thing for October. Why don't we do spokes? And
This was like
then,
September 25th, something like
oh
that.
yeah, because that's how we roll. Like this was right before October happened, and we were like, hey, we could do spokes. We could make it Spoketoberfest, and then we had Spoketoberfest, and we even had live events because we had live events then. And I traveled to Minneapolis and went to one of our developer meetups there, and we taught some people how to build spokes, and we had everyone there submit a PR while they were there at that event. And DigitalOcean sent a whole event package of swag that was great, as well as some ServiceNow partners. So that was a ton of fun with one of our MVPs, Jace Benson, who's that meetup organizer. So are you ready for a screen share, Dave?
I am ready. All right, so let me. It's been so long since I've done this. See if I can remember how to do the whole deal. All right, so verify that everything is copacetic, and you want it a little bigger, probably, maybe one bigger, something like that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm probably gonna have to do that page by page. So just remind me if it gets too small at any point.
All right.
Already. So now what I'm gonna do is show you guys. This is like what's left over from last year. This is kind of, we did the basics for Linode, and here's why I did Linode. It's not particularly enterprisey. It's really more of a consumer grade cloud. So it is doubtful but not impossible that any of our customers use this, right? Typically they would use some of the bigger, more robust providers, at the enterprise scale. But the things that make this work is that they have a really, really good OpenAPI specification. And we found that they were just so super easy to use. So what we originally did, and that was the very first time we did this, we got, and I'm trying to remember how many endpoints. There's like 100 endpoints in this API. And it took,
there's a lot.
We're gonna see this because they've revved this since last year. So let me just show you the rundown, the 10 that we built. So a couple of these things are data gathering actions. So get regions, for example. Let me show this. This thing exists. I did just minimal setup to make sure I had a auth token and everything so that I can hit it. So this is a data gathering action that would be used to drive a dynamic input. So when you run this thing, you get this packet back out, which, as you can see, this format is very important. You get this data, this chunk of data, which is an array of JSON objects that are name and label. So this is what you see in the UI, and this is kind of this is essentially the ID of it. Your name is the value, and label is the what shows up on the UI. Now here, this is a very good indicator for the value of the dynamic inputs, because there is one on here that didn't used to, somewhere in here is India. This didn't exist when we did this last year.
All right.
So this is the whole reason why one uses dynamic inputs is for things that change just a little bit over time. You don't want to have to commit code that changes that, or you don't want to have to go into an action and change a choice list and add another thing because a new one exists, right? If that can be served by an API, you get it from the API, and then at design time, when you're building a flow, you now will get those choices. And so when I did the workshop for Knowledge 20, the example, I used a really goofus example where I showed countries, and I showed Czechoslovakia and the USSR and I think the Ottoman Empire or something, I mean, even like the list of countries in the world changes over time. And so this is not a thing you ever want to have to commit code to do something that changes once every 3 years, right? Just let the API do it. So we have this kind of thing. We have, so there's a very similar one, which should be get VM types. Let me just demonstrate that one right quickly. And this is going to change more often than, much more often than hosting centers, right? It's kind of expensive and arduous to set up a new hosting center. However, this right here, these change quite frequently, right? They may add a new kind of VM type and et cetera, et cetera. So I've got a couple of these data gathering actions, and then I've got some basic operations, which is create a new VM. You can start a VM, shut down a VM, delete a VM. You can, get images. And I think images, I believe, is going to be, this is another one of those data gathering actions for a dynamic input. And I believe that this is like all the distributions that you could do. Yeah. So you can do Slackware or Mint or Arch Linux, et cetera, et cetera. So when you want to create one of these things, we'll open that.
Hey, Dave, you mind if I just pipe in real quick? So you guys
Yes.
might see in Spokes as well, we call these just metadata retrieval actions. So I know you're calling them data retrieval or whatever, but in case you see it in the Spoke, that's exactly what we're doing. We're, populating choice lists with the API response instead of hard coding it.
Right. And so this, this create, you can see now uses all three of those things, because that's kind of like the minimum definition of I'm going to start a VM, where, what machine, and then what OS am I going to put on this thing, right? And that's like the very minimum. And if you were going to test this thing, you'll notice that it's kind of spinning. And, I want to put it in Central Canada, the smallest one with, whatever, CentOS, Gentoo, I don't care, right? And so, and in fact, let's just go ahead and test this one time just to verify that we haven't bit routed this thing in the last year. And if I come over here, so I don't know, I don't remember.
Very easily could have happened if we didn't have those dynamic metadata retrievals, right?
Oh yeah, I could totally be picking a thing that isn't there anymore, right?
Right.
So which one of these am I? Is my
Provisioning scheduled.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
on
there
the
it is.
screen.
Okay, all right.
Victory was had.
Yeah.
All right, everybody can go home. Victory was had.
No, this is just baseline, but brother, we haven't even started. This is remediation. So anyway, that works, right? So now what we're gonna do is step one of the whole thing. And if we look at this, it should see probably effectively like the end of this thing. And so if you really want to be an eagle eye, this won't last long enough, I think, for anyone to grief it. But you'll notice like one of the outputs of this thing is like what it's I believe that in my action, I just generate a random root password. And then that's one of the things you tell it. Like,
okay.
So then the output here is, here's the IP address. Here's the ID, which is a internal Linode thing. Here's the label of it. So this is like, you see that's the name that you see over here, that Linode 27, blah, 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 blah. And then over here is the root password. And so given those things, these are now, like if you have a flow, those would now be pills that you can use on further things. So if, for example, like the next step was going to be some sort of like an SSH step, an action that does some kind of SSH, you can pass the password along to it. So when we look at where we are, we have get my VMs, get statistics, create, stop start, run a command, get images. And to be honest, I don't even remember if run a command worked. I think maybe that is a thing that we stopped in the middle.
I think we stopped on it, and it wasn't working when we stopped.
That seems entirely plausible. And in fact, it's in published state. Maybe not. Out of curiosity, so IP address user. Yeah, well, let's not worry about this. So now, we have some things to think about, which is the first thing I want to do. Let me clear some of this out while I talk. Is I'm going to reimport the OpenAPI. Now, this actually is something I have never done. We're going to do this on here the first time, which is take an integration that I have imported the OpenAPI spec, and then re-implement a subsequent revision of the same API. So this is completely untested ground. I'm presuming that I'm just going to get another option in the drop down.
That's my least surprise option, is that it will
Yeah.
create me a second new one and I can just choose from that one.
Right. And that they
I'll
will
give you-
look.
I'll give you a quick warning. If you try to import the same API, you will get an error. But if it's different version, then you'll be okay.
So what's the definition of same API? The same root URL?
Yeah, the same URL might do it. Let's just try it out and see.
Let's try. Okay. So, and I'm going to do this from any one of these things. Uh-oh. 450. This is it's 10 minutes to quitting time. So Alexa is reading me my calendar, the weather.
Oh, that's great.
And then it's going to
also
play.
driven by Integration Hub.
So
Yes.
You'll see the version is on the API.
Well, and then you'll see.
Can't really make out the song.
It is 10 minutes of Billy Squire. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
Now you're invoking everybody else's.
Alexa, stop.
That's why we have headphones.
I turned the mic off, but I forgot entirely about my timed automation. All right. Okay. So now what we do, so this will be interesting. Like I said, and so we have some, this is non slam dunk, but let me come over here to the Linode stuff. And in the API docs, I try to have as much of this locked and loaded as I can have. Where is the open API? Here it is. So
Josh or Chris, while he's loading that, why don't you tell us what OpenAPI is all about?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So it's really, the easiest comparison is like comparing it to a SOAP WSDL, but for REST. It's just a definition, a contract that most API developers will build describing what their APIs do. And so we're just using that definition. It could be in JSON, YAML. I've seen multiple formats of this, but we read it in and then we try to populate what those APIs do is the best we can.
Right. And so this one is YAML. Here's the deal. So you might, Chris, this might be the deal. This is probably identical URL to the previous spec, because like what we have in there is I think 4.50. It says it down there.
I think you'll be okay as long as the version in the OpenAPI spec is different than what you did before. But
so I can show you over here. You're saying that this, as long as this number is different, it will be fine.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, let us see. I would take a bet, but I just don't have a.
I know you're a gambling guy, Dave, so I'm sure you would.
I think it's going to work. No, cannot parse this.
Oh no, that looks like a.
Oh, that looks like
an error in the import itself, not a.
Do you remember me saying? So I was telling earlier in the pre-show about how the Open API we used in the knowledge lab for dynamic inputs used the or building your first spoke. We used Open API, and it used a local YAML that you would download from like the doc site. That was because I had to edit that thing by hand to make it work for our implementation.
Yeah,
so
if they don't follow the definition and how to write those correctly, we could have errors trying to import. Can you try to copy and paste it instead of download from URL? Maybe that might fix it.
Well, I mean, I think what I would have to do, object storage, buckets, cluster ID, operation ID. So I would probably have to go in there and find that thing.
Yeah, it looks like it's saying something about something being duplicated, like
buckets. Yeah. So I think what it's gonna, and I absolutely saw this in the London Transit Authority's Open API spec, is that they literally had a thing in there twice, and when he did, it made it error out. So that is not what I'm gonna not what I want to fight today. So the way that you would get around this, the way that I got around this the last time I saw it, is that I did exactly what Chris was just saying. Is I took this thing and then just thing by thing, I fixed the Open API spec. And then, so the way that I would make that happen is instead of doing this where you import it from an URL, you have another option, which is manually populate, and you can put it in here. That's what he was suggesting. And this is completely doable. This is what we had to do in the lab for exactly this reason. So that part failed. So we're just going to go with what we already have. So what we can do now at this point, remind me not to save this, because what we're going to do is just look at what exists in here.
Okay.
So this is what is from the previous OpenAPI spec that we pulled down. So you notice that you have a whole lot of operations available, up to and including, some of these are VM operations. Some of these are your account operations. Like you can change the credit card on the account from this thing. You can attach a volume. So you could create, effectively, you could create a second disk hard drive, second virtual hard drive. And then you could say, I want to have 2 disks on there and attach, but essentially mount the, like, I'm guessing attach is probably different than mount, but, and you'll notice there are so many that it has to, like,
You can
Yeah, I
open a
don't
support
see a
ticket
mount.
that
yeah, I don't see them.
Nice.
Let's see what all is in volume. Do I have to do a star volume? I probably do. So attach volume, create volume, detach, list volume, update.
Resize. Yeah.
I'm guessing attach actually probably is the same as mount. But anyway, so given this, we could, let's, since we're not going to re-import the API, and so if there's anything different, we're effectively talking to the previous version. What would be a thing? Let's kind of peruse this and let's find some things that we can add to this. Boot into rescue mode wouldn't be terrible. Although we probably want something with enough zhuzh to it that it's not like that one's, I think has no real, it's like a success fail. So let's find something.
Yeah.
Let's find something actually that we could put in
is
a
there
flow
a-
with something else. And
Is there a copy?
there's a clone.
Yeah. Is there a clone?
You can clone the whole
The
thing.
VM? Yeah.
Yeah, clone Linode. So effectively, Linode terminology means VM in the context here. That
Okay.
can actually be a little surprising. So when you see the, because this is not
Boot
how I
Linode,
think about it,
clone-
and
yeah.
you'll notice, I'm pretty sure that you'll notice I don't use their terminology. You'll notice we have create VM, not create Linode. So I have already done that translation for you into what I find more natural. So okay, so fair enough. Let's do a clone Linode from there. I'm sure that this thing should be fine up and running in Toronto, which is where I picked it. So let's go ahead and let's just create ourselves a new action. And let's call it clone VM. We want it in the Linode spoke. I don't know if I have categories for the other stuff. Probably. Oh, I do. Look at that.
Look at that. Categories and everything. Fancy.
And what's the thing you called, Chris? You said is metadata retrieval. What was it?
Yeah. So if you download spokes and you see metadata retrieval actions, it's just like what you said. They're just lookup values for like our dynamic.
Okay.
choice.
So we changed the terminology because I think we rolled it out as data gathering, but the metadata retrieval is now the.
Yeah. Data gathering's fine for this demo. No problem.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this one is VM. Okay. I actually was not aware of that one. Okay. So really the input we would need is, if we're going to clone, probably is just, let's say the ID of the, well, let's not say that. Let's figure out what the heck this thing needs.
Yeah.
So Linodes.
Well, if you just do the rest step, won't it tell you the
So this is what I was
inputs?
thinking. Well, this is what I was thinking is that, yeah, it will. So Linode ID. So I just wanted to do the input first, but yeah, I totally, if I had done that first and come back, I totally could have done that. So let's say,
Actually, before you do the input, Dave, there might be a secret sideways thing that shows up just by doing it from the rest step. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah.
that's
the input.
That's what I was trying to say is,
walk me through the magic.
yeah,
it'll-
if
it'll
you do the
auto-correct.
rest step, because you're pulling it from the OpenAPI spec, if it has inputs that it has to have, those will get declared automatically for your action. Is what's supposed to happen.
All right. So then what we want to do is, we want to do clone Linode, which
Yeah,
has
and
the
now-
Linode ID.
And look at your input variables over on the data pane.
Yeah,
It's
they
like-
got defined.
Interesting. All right. So now, And is there anything I need from this? Let me go back and look at the doc right quick. It's going to return. Oh, you also have to give it region and type in the request body schema. Backups enabled. So we have some optional stuff. Linode ID. If an existing Linode. Okay, so that's actually, you know something weird about this? In the body parameters, you see this Linode ID, but the required path parameter. So what happens if the Linode ID in the body is different than the one in the path parameter?
It's kind of weird.
That's very odd to me, but
that seems weird.
Yeah. We'll just assume that that's an oversight or something. I'm going to guess that it used to not be in there, and somebody just forgot to take it out or something.
Well, actually, it's just a placeholder.
The target. No, scroll down. I think it's a target. So it'll
be the target
over top of
you're saying
existing
one. Okay. So this is not the input. This is the output.
Yeah,
Optional
that's the output.
Output. If you wanted to clone, so essentially this is like cloning an instance. To say, take one of my existing VMs and rewrite it,
push it over top of another
existing VM. Okay, that makes so much more sense than what I thought it was. All right, I should have assumed the competence of the fine folks at Linode. All right, so we for sure have to have a region and a type.
Yep.
So we can get those. So now let's go back to over here. So it's doing this request body type JSON.
Check
I'm probably going to want
object and see if they're in there.
Oh, so now
there we go.
Has all these things.
You can pass those with inputs.
So
are the inputs marked as mandatory? Could you check that? Because I kind of want to know if this one is mandatory.
And not these are not. So I'm going to actually have to. So it wasn't quite as badass as it needed to be.
I mean, it's pretty darn close.
I don't think the Linode doc required type and region though.
It does. Yeah, it does. Down here. It does in the body. The region and type are like minimum specs for this thing. So
you got to talk to the product manager who owns that feature.
Here's the question: is what happens? So if I can do I can do this right. I can make a sub piece of this complex object available.
Yeah, you can remove everything here if you want. Just to.
Let's do this. I'm going to leave all the names
the same.
I'm going to leave all the names the same, but let's just say
nice label.
Quest parameters. I'm not going to bother like changing the cases and everything right now, but that would be a thing I would do in the fit and finish.
Yeah, you could delete everything out of here you don't want since it's optional. Leave the requirement.
I'm actually going to leave. I might get rid of the disks just because it's a little troublesome to deal with because you got this weird array of stuff and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm going to get rid of disks. Everything else I think is fine. Actually, having backups enabled is like great, right?
That's pretty cool.
Just there. So what we're going to do, so we do have to rewrite two of these guys because we don't want region and type to be the string that it came in as. We want it to be, can I not do, problem. Can I not do a dynamic input from a sub piece of a complex object?
That is unfortunately true. So this is where some of the time when you're using the OpenAPI feature is really helpful in identifying here's what the structure could be, but then you're also welcome to restructure it. So in this case, you would end up probably wanting to have two top level.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull those out of that. We will delete both of those things. And let's say region. And we'll make that a dynamic object. That is one of those things that I just had never, because this is, I had just never been in that situation where I have a child of a larger object that is what I want to be that. So get regions. And then we'll do the same process for the type. And let me just look at what I called it type. Okay, capital T type. And we'll make that a dynamic choice. And because I set all this stuff up last year, I don't have to build anything because it's all just sitting there waiting to be created, which is fantastic. All right, so now we want to get VM types. And again, you'll notice that I'm using the rest of the world's terminology instead of the company's terminology. All right, so we'll get rid of type and region from this. So I had been wanting to make them mandatory under there. And this kind of sort of makes sense, right? Is why put, in retrospect, although this wasn't what I was trying to do originally, this makes more sense than what I was trying to do. Because if you got 2 required parameters, why having a required parameter embedded in something else where it is required as a child thing? They should probably be right up top if they're required.
Yeah. And I think that's a good practice in general. I totally agree with that. Highlight the things you want and then treat the optional things a little different.
Yeah. So
yeah. I might
think,
even have 2 input complex objects at that point, required ones and optional ones.
Yeah, which is quite reasonable. All right, so I'm going to leave everything else the same.
Mark them as mandatory, region and type, since they are.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the oversight. I think configs I might get rid of for the same reason that I got rid of the disks, because I don't want to deal with it.
We're not going
right
to send
now.
it to it, so nuke it.
Partly because, and there's another reason for that, which is that like everything else in here is self-explanatory and those are not. And so that's like less of a technical thing and more of a UX type thing, which is the person who is going to be building a flow and looking at this action going to have any idea what the heck they're looking at when they look at this thing? And so if not, you're not, like when you're building these actions, you're not required to pass everything through. In fact, you'll notice a lot of actions severely simplify what's happening under there, either by making default choices for you or just hiding the choice altogether or letting the API pick default. Certainly, I was involved in a spoke that had like dozens of options, and you didn't have dozens of options from the outside. You just had like 2 or 3. So
hit those required ones and then the 2 most common optional ones.
All right, so now we've got that. We've got the rest step, and so in this particular thing with this open API, like this step up here is doing most of the work for you, right? Because this rest step is just passing along this packet, right? So it's going to do all the bundling for you.
Well,
everything, or at
we
least we
need
hope
to adjust our request body to include the region and type now.
Now how are we going to do that with this?
I think the easiest way would be to just do inline JSON, and then you can just drop the individual pills into it that you want to send.
All right.
That might be a way to do it.
So how does one do that?
Or actually, do you have an example of the JSON structure? Because you could also use the payload builder, and the payload builder will help you deal with the things like when it's not there, don't actually generate that snippet of JSON for you.
Let's see.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion. Instead of trying to let us build that request body, now we build it instead with the new one.
How about right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so
so now we're going to add a new step for a
we're going to add a step. Okay, I got you. We're going to add a JSON step ahead of that.
Yeah, the payload builder.
Payload builder
handles JSON nowadays. Up a little bit. There you go. To the right.
I'm still okay, missed it. Alrighty. So, and then where do I put my, clearly I have not used this yet.
So basically the way this works is you can put up in the top, you can't actually really drop a payload in, you just have to define all the key value pairs or the name value pairs that you want. So
okay, so let's do, so we don't have I can't paste that example and have it build it for me?
Unfortunately not, but that's a great idea.
It'd be kind of neat for the JSON input one to kind of work kind of like the JSON output one does, is provided the example, it builds a complex object for me. Hint, hint.
I agree.
Please.
I agree with you, Andrew. I agree with you.
PMs are writing a story even as we speak. All right, let's do this as quickly as I can. In fact, what I probably won't do is build any of those optional ones right now.
Yeah,
we'll just do
the 3 mandatories.
The 3 mandatories, and then we'll take that as an offline action for later to do the rest. Region. And then when you were saying the like when you say send empty, like by having not send empty structure, if one of these things was empty, it wouldn't have the value or wouldn't have the key. Is that right?
Right.
Well, so there's two Yeah, there's two factors. The other is on each individual name value pair. So to the very far right, you can expand the option next to the trash can.
Okay.
And now you can say omit if empty,
Omit if
or
empty.
mandatory. And so this
Okay.
makes it really nice, really easy.
So I can totally do that on all the optional ones. Is just I will every one of those optional ones I'll have omit if empty.
Exactly.
Because probably like the one that's the Boolean, that would be problematic, right? If I don't do it, now I have invalid JSON.
Exactly. Yeah. And
If
for
it has
anyone
a-
wondering why that might be, if you send the key and you don't send a value in the key, that could actually still mean something. So in some cases, you just don't want to send the key at all.
All right. So now I've got the Linode ID, the region, the type, all populated from the input. And then I shouldn't.
You want to do the Boolean one too, the backup enabled, and just.
Sure. Let's just do that one for fun. Just to add one more. We'll call it. Oh, I can't pick what to call it.
I think
tell
you should
me.
name it the same as their payload structure. Yeah, backups _ enabled.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't name it whatever I want unless I want them to work.
Reject.
So let me add one more thing to the input, a non-mandatory. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this whole thing. And we'll add one non-mandatory Boolean. Just backups enabled. I don't remember if the second word is supposed to be capitalized or not. And not mandatory. And then we'll go back to our payload builder and drop that in. Why is it?
That's weird.
We'll assume that that's fine. Backups enabled. And we do want to make this omit if empty because obviously we could break the packet if we don't do that. All right. And everything else is fine, right? And then
Looking good. Send it to the rest step.
let's get rid of what they sent and we'll use just that payload.
Nice.
Now we want some kind of output parsing step down here in
JSON
the
parser. If they
parser.
send
This
us JSON.
absolutely did not exist last year.
It did not. That's a new pairs
right.
feature.
Hold on a second. Somebody talk for a second.
Sure.
A little attention.
So here's our new pairs feature, JSON parser step. So what you do is you what we were trying to do earlier and we were talking about was you can take the response, so one of the test responses, and plop it in here under that source data area, and then hit generate target, and that will generate your complex object from that example payload.
All right. So let's come over here. I'm going to take
Which
this.
saves a lot of time.
So let's do that right now. There's the example payload. I will put that in here. Oh, did I just do? Okay. And then
And now at the top, we should be able to hit generate target once you click out of that box.
okay, generate target. Generating, and then if I come down here, there's root, and then all the stuff. Fantastic.
That looks like what you
pretty
gave it.
All right, and now do I need it? Is this one of those things where if I drop it, it'll automatically? I don't have to do any mapping, right?
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. Okay.
Now, if you want to provide this as an output from your action, you do need to link that up.
Let's do.
Even that will still get auto learned. So as long as
Sure,
you go and
but we still need to
output-
connect it here. Right?
Okay, so I don't have to define, like, this is where I can use the magic, right? I create this
Exactly.
and I say it's a complex object and I say nothing,
Just object.
just object. Okay. And I say nothing else about it other than
What you want to name it for the consumption.
results. I don't know if that's the best
Maybe-
name, but
or is it a
I might-
VM or what do you? Maybe it's. A virtual
let's look
machine.
at this. It's both a VM, but it's also like status and
Mhm.
information about the backups.
I'd call it a Linode.
There you go.
Or like VM details or whatever. Linode's good.
And then we hit
Linode
exit edit
details?
mode.
How about Linode details?
I like it.
I'll go ahead and call it mandatory. And honestly, you guys explain to me. I don't know, like in something like this where we're wiring it up, it doesn't really matter much if you say mandatory or not mandatory, right? Like I don't know if there's a best practice in making these things mandatory. on outputs because you've already wired up the thing. So the only situation it could possibly get into is if you like the transaction fails and you have like no output at all, like you have no response body. That's like null. So other than that, you already got worse problems than the mandatory input at that point. So
Someone
I
did
don't know
ask
what
for
that
you
does.
to change the variable name just because it was bothering them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for
This
that
is like
one,
the
Lauren.
one. This is like the one place in this UI that does not auto change this.
Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, so we get rid of that, and now I'm going to drag and drop this, and I should get identical. Now, if I go back to edit outputs, I should get. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah,
There's
there
the
you go.
Yay.
there's the magic.
There's the magic.
Because what we
I
don't
love
like to
magic.
do is tedious busy work. So now at this point, I believe we have something testable.
Save.
So now
Yay. I love a good save.
we're gonna get this ID.
I know Brad was over there nervous. He's like, we've been doing a lot of stuff in Flow Designer without hidden save.
Save often, learn the hard way.
All right. So now let's go ahead and test this joker. I don't know what I don't know what this thing is. Do we have a phantom left over? It's not
Yeah.
mandatory. Who cares?
I think you started creating a input when you did the auto generate, so you still have that left over.
Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. Let's set it up in West India, which I believe is Mumbai, where I have totally been.
Those are dynamic. Those are API calls.
And let's go ahead and let's set up that backups enable. Right? This is like Chekhov's input. If we set it up in Act 1, we need to fire this thing by Act 3. All right. Valid.
It doesn't like your ID.
Oh, I know exactly why. And this is the OpenAPI spec was not my friend on this, because do you know how it defined it? I actually remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Oh, did it not
I saw
define it
that.
as a string?
No. Actually, it did it right. I'm doing it wrong, which is the ID is not the same as the ID name, I don't think.
Oh, so it was an integer.
It's the
and it
integer of
wants
that.
an integer.
All right, so let's go
All
back to
right.
Mumbai. Let's go to the smallest one, and let's do backups enabled.
I was gonna say something because you can see the little the UI
the up and down. Yeah. Well, no, I knew that I specified it as an integer, or I knew that the UI specified it as an integer. The question is the number or is the name the thing that it needs there? And I'm not 100% sure that this is right, but we'll see.
It says ID, so I'm assuming number. But you're
We'll
right.
see.
Though. IDs can be
That's just
named.
something, and this is like not technical. This is like conceptual. And this is unable to know.
Oh, I know what's going on.
Oh,
I
did we
did
not
not-
sit-
I
we
didn't do
didn't set
something.
it.
I didn't do something in setting this up,
Yeah,
which
you-
is I had to do one more thing in here, and
Which
the
is
open
pick the
API
alias at the top.
cannot help me. I got to do this.
Authentication
This.
step. Mm.
This right here.
Thankfully, we're not doing authentication on the show today.
And this one is straightforward because this is not OAuth. This is a personal access token. So it's way more straightforward than OAuth. And what it doesn't require is configuring the other end of it, which is where OAuth, even like when an OAuth thing that works pretty well, that's kind of like what happens at the other end is like this weird black box. Did I pick the right scope of these weird choices that I don't know what they mean? Let's find out. By
I
doing
don't
this
know.
over and
I
over.
personally, I miss it. I miss the OAuth episodes. I'm just gonna say it. But
You
All
can
right.
okay.
you can
Not-
come do an
not-
OAuth episode anytime you want,
That-
Josh.
It sounded
I'll
like an
schedule a
invitation.
special event. Whenever you're ready, we'll do an OAuth show.
All right, so JSON parser failed. What this implies to me though is we go back to our dashboard.
something happened. Maybe.
Something
Well,
happened.
Oh, it
Or
might
maybe-
have failed because this failed. So let's look in here and see what we got going on.
Introspect the steps.
Backups enabled. So there's the payload. Bloody
That
blah
step
blah blah.
completed. Did we get a 200? How about a 200?
Method failed. Invalid
401.
authorization token.
Did we
Hmm.
pick the right? Connection alias. Check one of
Let's
the
look
other
and
ones.
see. So we know that create VM worked earlier, right? And so it used xinstancy
right.
Linode. So if this is using the same one would expect it to work.
That is. So one would expect that to work.
That is unusual that it worked in one and not the other.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's now an auth episode.
That's what I deserved that. I deserved that.
Let's look right quickly here and see.
Is there potential to look at that execution details and the execution details of the create VM and possibly diff it? Because
yeah, let's look and see.
Something about this feels like a weird false positive to me. Yeah, it's really weird.
Create VM. All right, so if we look down at this guy, when we did,
you got quieter, Dave.
Is your base URL the same? Because I think that might...
my base URL the same. Hold on.
Yeah, so if you look at create VM, what was your base URL on the right below the alias? Okay.
Linode instances.
4.
And then what is it on the new
Linode instances, Linode clone. So these are rooted at the same place.
Yeah.
Let's come down here. And so the auth, let's look at this right quickly. Let's jump over to the docs. Where in here, the auth is in personal
Read write, which seems pretty.
No, I'm not using. This is, you got two choices, and I'm using the personal.
I see. So it's either use it. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So, we look at the.
Is there anything else in the header that might have been different?
I'm looking to see. So the name, authorization, bearer, blah blah blah, SN auth token. So let's see if that's different over here.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Oh, that's the wrong one. Where's the headers? There they are.
Well, the other thing too is in that integration metadata section up above. You can
it doesn't seem to have the auth attributes in that header.
That will totally do it.
But so I think before we go too far,
there we go. No, with authorization bearer, we didn't have it.
Oh, right. That didn't come in. That didn't automatically come in from the OpenAPI.
Because that's a choice, I guess, on how you're.
All right. So this is not as tricky as it looked at first. It is literally do this thing.
Yeah. Authorization bearer and give it the credential.
And this is cool because this gets to show off a nice feature of the REST step, which is that when you have this kind of weird custom scenario, you can still get access to the credential value and then put it in the right place.
Oh, I copied the whole thing. I don't even want that. I want this. I want this right here, bearer space, and let's make sure it should be bearer like a single space. Yeah. That seems like that's right. All right, step, rest step, blah blah blah. All right. I'm feeling good about this.
I'm feeling better about it significantly.
Andrew's not willing to go out on the limb to good, but he's feeling better. All right. Oh boy.
Need our ID back. Whee. Well, it's almost to the bottom of the hour, so I am actually feeling like success. This is success right here. It's gonna happen.
That's because you want the thank you good night moment right about now. Well, we got two things, which is let's make sure.
400 is not a 401.
Must be
scopes
type. Must be of type integer.
Oh, crap.
Must be of type Boolean. Backups enabled.
Oh, I know why.
Why?
So right now the payload builder is really focused on building strings. And so you may need to not use it for this particular use case.
Oh, because is it surrounding it with surrounding
It-
both of those with
It
Who's
is.
the PM on the payload builder thing? I definitely need to.
That's a fair one to throw right back at me, Chris, and I appreciate it.
oh, because the payload as it's coming out, do I
Yeah.
have any way of I don't have any way of taking those quotes out in like a template here, do I?
Unfortunately, not at this time. So what I would do is if you actually were to just copy the preview and then use that in your
Script.
Okay.
body instead. So and then basically you can take full
just gonna-
control.
All right, so I'm just going to drag and drop the pills into that, right?
Exactly.
So I'm just going to take this thing. We'll do this quickly. We can do this in the time allotted. So how do I? Oh, I don't want to do a payload.
Yeah, we just
builder.
we
Yeah,
just go to the rest step and
All right, we get rid
and
of the
do
whole
it
thing.
directly.
Go back to here.
And then just put this
And
in the
instead
body.
of that, we put this in here. Put this inside quotes.
Region. Mwah.
This is my least favorite part of the whole deal. Go! I
Yeah.
did it. Type.
I like to leave my cursor there and use the cannonball.
That's very fair. All right, let's do that. Type. That probably is more sensible. This would have shown me exactly what was going on if I had done it this way the first time. ID.
That was all my fault. I was like, yeah, let's use the payload builder.
That's fine because this is like we say, one of the whole things of this program is you show the job, and that was
And all of the
Well,
job.
I mean, that was an
not just the
incredibly,
shiny good parts.
but that was a perfectly sensible. That was a perfectly sensible default place to start. In fact,
think
you
if
know what
I
I'm going
need
to do?
to-
I'm going to
You
leave
gotta
those
get
two.
rid of- yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm going to leave them, and then let's just
Yeah,
leave
I
them
like
as
it.
defaults. All right, so now this is what we're going to send.
It looks like you have a trailing single
Oh.
quote
Yeah.
at the very end.
Yeah.
Trailing single quote at the nice eye. All right, let's do that. Good job. All right.
I'm surprised your OCD, Dave, doesn't move that bracket back to the left, but that's okay.
Well,
mine's going off. Like
I've got an eye on the clock.
It bugs
I've got
me a little bit.
All right, gentlemen.
Priorities.
All right,
Wow.
gentlemen.
you got my OCD going crazy.
Is that the last one? All right. All right. I was trying to keep an eye on the clock, but for you guys, that's fine.
And to those of you watching who are just as bothered, you are welcome.
All right. Let's have the thank you good night moment. Oh no.
I don't know yet. You put those labels and groups in there. I'm not sure if those are those.
Do you think that's gonna be my undoing? It could be my undoing.
I just don't
I
know if
know.
they're defined in your instance like they are in the example.
I think those are yeah, if it fails on those, then you that's a fair cop. All right. Let's
Yeah,
run
you have
this.
to drink if it fails on that,
If
Dave.
it fails on that, I can take them out very, very quickly. All right, let's see. Return
Uh-oh.
as output. Does this imply?
400 again.
Yeah. All right, Chris. That's exactly right.
Does that require a drink?
Label
Or-
can only be provided when cloning to a new Linode. Now, wait a second. I am cloning to a new Linode.
Did you
Yeah.
specify?
Group can only be provided when cloning to a new type can only be. All these things are saying only can be provided when cloning to a new Linode.
So go to your
Shh. Go to the API
Go-
page.
no, go to the rest step for me. And you specified the Linode ID here. You do
Oh, I
not
don't
want to
want that.
specify the
Oh,
Linode ID
that's-
here.
So let's leave everything else and get rid of this. Good
That
eye
explains it.
again. So I was actually trying to clone it on top of its own self, which is going to be a problematic.
Which is going to be problematic.
All right. So that no
I wonder what it would have done if it hadn't failed.
Well, so here's the other thing too, is to think about, and this would be, like assuming that you're actually going to like put this into some kind of production, which I'm probably will, because I need those sweet pull requests to get that shirt. That you'll notice that when the rest step is failing, I'm getting a JSON, I'm getting a parser error, and I don't want that to happen. I want the rest step to be able to fail and not fail the action. So we need something a little more graceful in there, even if we don't get a payload because we got an error on this. So maybe we want an if status before we do the payload, something like that. All
Okay.
right. Now I feel super good about this because how else am I going to
I'm
feel at this
feeling
stage?
good.
Oh, look
Completed.
at that.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, look at that. 530-0000. We had success.
That
Bam.
might be the most perfect success we have ever
Now
had
look at
on
over
this.
here.
That feels good with
See
my
in the dashboard. It is in
Cloning
fact
to
cloning.
cloned Linode.
And really
Wow.
and truly, like when we started this was almost, because we did a lot of talking. So it was like
We did a lot of
end of
talking.
the hour. So we did this in like 40 minutes, including a couple false starts, including changing how we built the payload, including changing, multiple aspects of this, changing the inputs, and still in 40 minutes, we got the thing actually working. So this is why this was my thing last year, is because I actually like working with this API. So, and now they did fail me on their 7.53 API, open API spec. But then this is a thing that I might even consider, is like going through and finding those errors, fixing them, and like getting
And
that
letting
imported
them
for
know.
myself and communicating it back to them. What I really don't know, and this is one of those things that I don't know the underlying stuff well enough, is are other systems that consume these open API specs more fault tolerant than we are?
Yeah, I think so if you go to like SmartBear or like the Swagger whatever, I think if you just type Swagger into Google, you'll go to the main site. They let you post open API there as well. I'd be curious to know, does it consume it? Does it like create a?
Yeah, and that might be a research project that I do offline, is to say, all right, something else to consume, like any other tool, like a Swagger tool. If I take this, will this pull it up, and will it, it's kind of like, you remember, those of us old enough to remember this, when like different browsers would handle bad HTML different ways.
Yeah.
You remember that crazy like smiley face test page based on like that if you saw the exact smiley face with no streaks or missing pixels,
You handled it properly.
you handled it properly. And so this is kind of one of those things, I think, is that we're being really like fault intolerant about things that probably are spec violations, but that a lot of the tools don't complain about to our level. So we might be the hardest case available.
So
Yeah.
the last thing I'd like you to do, Dave, before you stop your screen share, is go over to your GitHub spoke and show everybody this is a public facing So you forked this from the public facing ServiceNow Program org.
Let me go to this one.
Spoketoberfest Linode, which other people can contribute to. And if that's one of your contributions in October, counts towards the 4 PRs for Hacktoberfest.
Right. So let's talk a little about, let's say that you were so inspired that you want to add an action to this thing. This is what you would do, is you would come to the GitHub ServiceNow Dev Program, Spoketoberfest Linode, or any of the projects that are up there. You fork this to yourself. So you click fork, you fork this to your own repo. This is actually super important, is that when you set up your application and you do import from source control, you import from your fork, not the main one. You import from your fork, because then what's going to happen is you're going to commit back to your version. So let me go back to my version. You commit back to this thing, and then you create a pull request. Do you guys want to take a minute to just commit what I just did and do the pull request?
Absolutely. Let's do
this.
Yeah.
We'll go
Josh,
a little over.
Chris, do y'all have the time? Let's do it.
If you have to drop, not a problem. But
Yeah, let's do it.
all right, so we'll go over here to Studio.
So we got to publish.
I'm not even going to publish. Let's publish. Let's just publish it, and let's assume that it's good enough. And I actually
It's good enough for this.
second pull request will be fixing that.
Fixing the
empty-
first one.
fixing the input and fixing the null payload. So let's publish it.
And someone else could fix it for you.
Even
'Cause
better.
This is
How
a
about
public
this?
repo.
I'll leave it broken, and if someone else can fix it over the course of the month, and if nobody fixes it,
I
then
will
I'll
call
fix it
them
at
out
the
on
end
the
of month.
show.
I'll
Whoever
fix it at the
fixes
end of the month if nobody else does it. But okay, so then we're going to go over to Studio, into source control, and we're going to commit changes.
And
you'll
again,
see-
you're connected to your fork of this repo.
now let us make sure The one thing that I would, so here's the stuff. Yes, this is to my fork. This is not to the main thing. And I don't know if this has been fixed. But in previous eras, there was a weirdness in the how ServiceNow would count your the author of a commit. So you'll notice that my local user on this is the identical thing as my GitHub username. That was a little life hack. I don't know if this has changed in the last year. Like when you commit from ServiceNow, is it using the account name of the account that you're committing from, or is it using the GitHub name of the credentials you're using? So
yeah, I think it's still using the account name, which you've changed to your GitHub name.
Yeah, to make sure you properly get credit for this in the month of October, make sure you use a local a username, set up a local account with admin that is the same as your GitHub username, and then for sure you will get your. So I just want to make sure that I'm not committing my API token. Okay, so this looks good. This is just some complex object stuff and the action. So we're going to continue. Let us go forward. Commit comment. Day LCHH kicking off
Spoketoberfest.
The hardest thing all day is spelling Spoketoberfest. All right. Commit files. We will commit it. Hopefully this doesn't take too, if it takes long, actually I don't mind because I need some more Bach over here.
So while you're doing this, I'll point out that one of the features in Paris is delta loading, which makes your life so much easier when you're dealing with source control, because switching between those branches happens a whole lot speedier when it's just doing delta loading and not uninstalling your whole application and reinstalling it from source.
How about while we wait for this, let's go around the horn and talk about the beers.
We can do that. All right. Starting with Brad. How was your beer, Brad?
Yeah, I was first. I had the Dragon's Milk White. It was a lot different than the other Dragon's Milk. Still pretty good, but not quite as good as their normal barrel-aged stout. Because of the success timing, we'll go 4.25.
Ooh, a 4.25 is still a pretty good beer.
Yeah.
And how about you, Chris? How was your Costco wine?
You know, it was pretty standard, but I liked it. It was definitely I would give it a 5 for the price and about a 3.5 for the taste.
Good enough, sir. And you, sir, Josh?
So the Beguile Flannel Pajamas Oatmeal Stout that's been in my fridge since last December is delicious, actually. I think it's a good, solid 4.25, and maybe even higher than that if it was fresher. So I'm pretty happy.
What's it get for the name?
Flannel Pajamas, it gets a solid 5 for me.
Nice.
That's what I've been working at home for 6 months. I'm definitely wearing flannel pajamas right now.
I'm going to guarantee there are a lot of brewers that think of the name first and then back fit any kind of beer that will fit that name.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
All right.
My Breckenbach is much like all these beers I've ever gotten from Aldi's. It's serviceable and nothing to write home about. Let's give this a 3.5, including the success bump.
And my Yingling lager was it's a Yingling. It's a fine beer. It's a 3.5. And then I did grab just a little little whiskey because I'm not driving either the show or anywhere else. And that was Eagle Rare, and it is fine.
All right,
so that's a 5.
All right, at this point, I think we're probably not going to wait for this to go the rest of the way.
Stop the screen share, I think, and we'll just talk through the rest.
Yeah, and the rest would be you would come over here to a commit, and you would say create a new. Let me make sure. Where would I create the new pull request? Would I do it looking at the commit?
You can do it straight from that first page. You can just do pull request right there. Pull request over here. Add file.
I would create a new pull request, and then I would just pick the commit. That would be the one commit or commits. That would be the ones that I want in there.
Yes, sir.
And so that's how you would do it. And then you would file that pull request, and you are on your way to getting your t-shirt. If I had half a brain, I would have wore my t-shirt, but I didn't.
I didn't have a chance. I had mine out and I didn't have a chance to switch.
All righty.
So
that
thanks so
was
much
fun.
for that, Dave. That
Yes,
was
That
awesome.
was fun.
So we got the chance to talk about Hacktoberfest, Spoketoberfest in particular, where you can contribute to this open source event. We've got all the details over at our blog, which is in the description of the video, but developer.servicenow.com/blog.do. And it's a featured post there for all of the month of October. All of our shows this month will be featuring us doing some code contributions to open source, even if they're just our own. And we will highlight at the end of the month some of the things that we see that others are contributing. So get your contributions in. And if it's to one of our 2 orgs, we'll take a look at them at the end of the month and highlight them and talk about them. And a little secret there is that will be during our CreatorCon event, which will be October 27th. So we'll have a special time for the show. And it will have a larger than usual audience because it'll be streaming as the main thing during CreatorCon for its window. So get your requests in, and we'll take a look at them, and we really look forward to that. So I want to thank tremendous thanks to the Integration Hub team here that came and joined. So Josh Nereus, Chris Malloy, and Dave Slusher. I love these guys. We, y'all are always a pleasure to work with, and this was a really fun show. Anything else you want to say before we head off?
Yeah,
Happy
I'll say on Hacktoberfest on SN Devs, there's a Hacktoberfest channel. If you need help with something or need some ideas, log in there. And then we've got a Hacktoberfest blog post also on the developer community, the big C community.servicenow.com. If you want to go in there and ask questions and all of those things. So yeah, let us know what you're doing somehow, and we want to hear about it.
Josh, did you have something as well?
I was just saying, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And assuming there's a great, the world gets a little better and we're able to have a Knowledge 21, let's pick a day and we'll all wear our shirts.
I'll wear our
Yes.
shirts together.
We'll have an evening. We'll all get our Hacktoberfest 2020 shirts together.
Even
How's
if
that for
it's
a plan?
virtual, I will definitely get on a Zoom with you, Dave, and
How about
have
this?
my Hacktoberfest 2020.
If we have Knowledge 21 and if it's in Vegas, which I think it would be, we'll wear Hacktoberfest 20 shirts to karaoke. How's this for the plan?
Nice.
This is our default plan.
I love the default
like it.
plan.
Excited, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. And for those joining later, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.